Well, we're at the end of the year and it's time for another Star Wars show to be released. That's right, I'm talking about Skeleton Crew. The Star Wars show following a bunch of kids that find a Jedi temple and get lost in space on a crazy intergalactic adventure. While they're braving the dangers of the Outer Rim on their own, they get into trouble, run into space pirates, and seek help from a mysterious lone Jedi. I've been following this show, keeping up with the news and watching all the trailers for a very long time, and I gotta say, I'm really excited for this one. I truly think it's going to be something that Star Wars fans have been clamoring for a very long time, and it looks like it's trying to invoke our nostalgia for films like Back to the Future, Karate Kid, and The Goonies. I think that this has the possibility of being a very good show, and that it'll be praised by fans as being one of the greatest things to come from Star Wars in the last few years. That being said, there's a billion videos on YouTube already of people making their own predictions of what's going to happen, and who's going to betray who, and what's going to happen through the course of the show, but I want to do something that's a little bit different. I want to predict how the Star Wars fandom will react to it. Will it have a strong start with viewership? How will people feel after a few episodes? Will it appear to break canon in some way that upsets a lot of people like The Acolyte did, and cause a massive controversy? And most importantly, will it stick the landing with a great finale? That's what I want to figure out. And looking back at the last few Star Wars shows, we have a lot of receipts of their audiences that can help us base our expectations on how Skeleton Crew will be overall received. So, we need to go back a few months and start with the massive elephant in the room. Yeah, I'm talking about The Acolyte. The Acolyte was the last Star Wars show to release, and it had the lowest audience turnout of any Disney Plus Star Wars show that we've ever seen so far. It had the lowest viewership on their pilot episode, which is already a bad start considering this was supposed to catapult the High Republic era as being a massive point for future Star Wars shows, as well as apparently a second season of The Acolyte, which will never see the light of day now. As new episodes were released, audiences dwindled and viewership continued to drop, resulting in the least watched finale of all Star Wars shows. The Acolyte as a whole was a big disappointment to the majority of the fanbase, resulting in a Rotten Tomatoes score lower than the Star Wars Holiday Special. I mean, at least The Acolyte managed to dethrone something. But even with that in mind, the Kenobi series, I'd argue, is where this all really started, with the show having the highest viewed pilot of anything we've ever seen in Star Wars. And believe me, I remember the hype leading up to this show. There was a ton of excitement. People were excited to see their childhood hero, Obi-Wan Kenobi, back on the big screen with Darth Vader, just to see what was going to happen with them. Are we going to get any flashbacks? Were the two of them going to fight? How has Obi-Wan grown in the last decade after his battle with Anakin on Mustafar? Did he train with Qui-Gon like Yoda instructed him to?
Oh, fuck yeah, this is the shit! Kill me now!
Then, when the show finally released, people started watching the episodes and realized the decline in quality. Viewership dropped off, and it's a real shame because I was really hoping Kenobi would be good, but it is what it is. That being said, as far as Skeleton Crew's viewership is concerned, with the last show released being The Acolyte, I think Skeleton Crew is going to be fighting a massive uphill battle. It's going to be very difficult for a show like this to have a high viewer turnout after the most statistically disappointing Star Wars show in history, and that's just the truth. I have high hopes that as the show continues, more people will start watching off of good word of mouth, and far from now we'll be able to look back and say that Skeleton Crew is one of the best Star Wars shows. Actually, funnily enough, there was a Star Wars show that did this once. It's Andor. That's right. The underdog show that absolutely nobody asked for, but despite the odds, ended up being a massive success. This show is so freaking good that people are saying it might be better than The Mandalorian. And honestly, they might be right. Personally, I go back and forth on which one I like better, but right now, I'm on Team Andor. Who would have thought that you can just pluck a character from Rogue One that nobody knew anything about and make a show about this guy and have it be one of the best things to come from Star Wars? If you guys can't already tell, I have a lot of great things to say about this show. The pacing, the character development, the world building, everything about it was just so rich. And even though the show is called Andor, it's really a catalyst of the Rebellion show. Cassian Andor is just a small part of a much larger story that he's caught in the middle of, The story of Andor's success is a fascinating one because, once again, it wasn't always like this. There was a time when Andor had the lowest viewership we've ever seen, but as new episodes dropped and the stakes got higher, people stuck around to watch and the overall viewership increased. And then, the finale stuck the landing. Now Andor sits at a comfortable 87% on Rotten Tomatoes compared to The Mandalorian's 78%. People really liked Andor, even when nobody initially asked for it. Now, stop me if this sounds familiar. It's a show about some seemingly unimportant people in the universe that nobody has any prior vested interest in. This show is a brand new idea that nobody expected, and nobody asked for. I'm going to make my bold prediction right now, and say that Skeleton Crew is going to be another Andor situation that nobody is ready for. But let's talk about the actual timeline of the show. December 3rd comes around, and I truly think that the first 2 episodes are going to have the lowest viewership that we've ever seen for a Star Wars show. That is purely because of the Acolyte, and after a few weeks, that'll go away, and as we see more episodes, viewership will go up. More people will start watching, and I don't think there's going to be any massive controversy regarding canon or anything like that. Since it's all going to be very far removed from everything, I'm going to boldly say that it's going to be very safe and inoffensive. We're not going to see anything crazy brought in from Legends or Gleb Shido or anything like that. Any masked figures that we see aren't going to be Starkiller or Cal Kestis or Ezra Bridger. They're just going to end up being new characters. This is just going to be a largely self-contained, goofy, whimsical adventure. That's all. And as we get closer to the finale, we're going to see a lot of excitement on the internet and a bunch of fan theories, episode breakdowns, and predictions. And then, the finale will have a very positive turnout compared to the first 2 episodes. It's not going to break any viewership records or anything, but it will be a surprise to be sure, but a welcome one. And then the IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes scores will be higher than The Mandalorian, and will sit close to Andor, somewhere around 85%, give or take. Which, honestly, for a show that sort of came out of nowhere and nobody expected, that's a really good score. We've been eager for something new for a while now, and I truly think that Skeleton Crew has the potential to be a great breath of fresh air for all of us. That being said, there's still one more very important prediction that I need to make. What happens after Skeleton Crew is done? And for that, I gotta say that with all of the love that Skeleton Crew Season 1 will get, if a second season doesn't immediately get announced, I can see there being a big online fan movement for it to happen, and I think that Lucasfilm is either going to announce that a second season will be happening, or at the very least tease that their story isn't over, and that we might see it continued in some way through some other project. Maybe even in the Mandalorian and Grogu movie. Though the number 1 issue I predict we'll start seeing around the 3rd or 4th episode. Put simply, the child actors are going to get a lot of criticism. Now guys, hold on. This isn't me saying that I want the child actors to get a lot of criticism. I'm just saying that it's going to happen because historically, this has always happened. With almost every single Star Wars project that's ever released, there's always one actor or one character that people decide they don't really like, and then a small minority of the fanbase goes after that person, and it becomes a big deal and ends up ruining people's lives and making the Star Wars fandom look like shit. Let's not forget that Ahmed Best almost ended his own life due to the backlash against Jar Jar Binks. Jake Lloyd was bullied in school for years after his portrayal of Anakin Skywalker in The Phantom Menace, so he quit acting. Hayden Christensen also quit acting for years after being mocked for his performance as Anakin Skywalker. When The Force Awakens trailer dropped, John Boyega got a ton of online backlash for apparently breaking the canon by being a black stormtrooper before The Force Awakens even released. Kelly Marie Tran deleted her social media after months of online harassment from people who hated Rose Tico in The Last Jedi. Daisy Ridley left social media for a while after loads of online harassment from critics. Gina Carano also got loads of hateful messages and death threats right after getting fired from The Mandalorian. Moses Ingram got hundreds of racist comments on social media when the Kenobi TV series was airing, and it was bad enough that Lucasfilm had to make a public statement about it.
It seems that some of the fan base from this influential fan base have decided to attack Moses Ingram online and send her the most horrendous racist DMs. And I heard some of them this morning and it just broke my heart.
So if anybody thinks that my prediction is unfounded, there's all the receipts. I would not be surprised in the slightest if this happens again with some of the child actors in Skeleton Crew. And the most that I can say is, can we just not, please? Like, just one time, can we keep the mean comments to a minimum and not message any of their social media accounts at all? Don't get me wrong, criticism is a good thing, but let's just keep it constructive. And remember, these aren't trained A-listers we're talking about. They're just kids in a goofy little space show. Let's not ruin anybody's life over acting in the goofy space show, please. Anyways, rant aside, it'll be interesting to come back to this video after Skeleton Crew is done to see just how accurate I was. I'm curious to see just how much of my prediction ends up being correct, because right now, I really think I'm going to be completely spot on with everything, but who knows? If I'm not, then I'll be the first person to say that I was wrong. Now, I want to open it up to you guys. Are you excited for Skeleton Crew? Do you think it's going to be really good, or do you think it'll be a disappointment or just underwhelming at best? I love reading the comments, so put your own predictions down below, and I'm going to be paying close attention to everything that happens as episodes get released. But remember, be excellent to each other, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Later.